Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another chilling tale, the kind of story that makes you want to keep the lights on just a little longer. Tonight, I've got a spine tingling experience to share. So grab a blanket, settle in, and let's dive into this eerie adventure. And before we jump in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more creepy stories. Your support helps keep the scares coming. Growing up, my brother Jake and I were as close as two siblings could get. We were partners in crime, pulling pranks, sharing secrets, and sticking together through thick and thin. But there's one chapter in our lives I wish I could erase, the time when Jake wasn't quite himself anymore. It started one summer when we were staying at our grandparents' old farmhouse. That place had been in the family for generations, and while it had its charm, it also had its fair share of creepy vibes, especially the attic. You know the type, low ceilings, dim lighting, and filled with old trunks and forgotten memories. Naturally, it became our favorite spot to explore. One afternoon, Jake found this old wooden box tucked away in a corner. It was carved with symbols that neither of us recognized, and it had a strange lock on it. He was always the curious one, so while I said maybe we shouldn't mess with that, he was already fiddling with the latch. Before I could stop him, the box popped open. Inside was a small black mirror and a bundle of dried herbs tied with a red string. There was also this old piece of paper with writing on it that didn't look like any language we'd ever seen. Jake, being Jake, held up the mirror and joked, "What if this is cursed?" We both laughed it off, but looking back, that's when things started to change. That night, Jake wasn't himself. He was unusually quiet during dinner, barely touched his food, and kept staring out the window like he was waiting for something. When I asked him if he was okay, he just mumbled, "I'm fine," in this flat, emotionless voice. That wasn't like Jake at all. Over the next few days, things got worse. He stopped sleeping in his room and started staying in the attic. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to hear him pacing up there, muttering to himself. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of him sitting in the dark, holding that black mirror and staring into it like he was in a trance. One night, I worked up the courage to confront him. I found him sitting in the attic, surrounded by candles he must have found somewhere in the house. He was whispering, but it wasn't in English. It wasn't even a language I could recognize. "Jake," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "what's going on with you?" He turned to me, and I'll never forget the look on his face. His eyes were dark, like all the light had been drained out of them, and his expression was empty. But the worst part was his smile. It wasn't Jake's smile. It was something cruel, something inhuman. "He's coming," Jake said in a voice that didn't sound like his own. "And there's nothing you can do to stop him." I backed away, my heart pounding. "Who's coming?" Jake just laughed, this low, guttural sound that sent chills down my spine. I ran downstairs and told our grandparents what had happened. They're old-school superstitious, so when I mentioned the black mirror and the strange behavior, they didn't waste any time. Grandpa grabbed a Bible, and Grandma gathered salt and some of those same herbs we'd found in the box. Together, we went back to the attic. Jake was still there, sitting in the middle of his candle circle. When Grandpa started reading from the Bible, Jake screamed, this high-pitched, unnatural sound that didn't belong to him. He thrashed and yelled, but he didn't sound like Jake anymore. It was like something else was speaking through him. Grandma threw the salt and herbs around him, chanting something in a language I didn't understand. The candles went out all at once, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then Jake collapsed. When he woke up, he was himself again. He didn't remember anything about the past few days, and we didn't tell him the full story. We took that black mirror and the box and buried them deep in the woods behind the farmhouse. I'm pretty sure Grandma said a prayer over it just to be safe. We never talked about it again, but sometimes late at night, I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't stopped whatever that was. And I'll tell you this, if you ever find a weird locked box in an old attic, just leave it alone. Some doors are better left unopened.